From WBNS 10 TV, your 24-hour news source. This is 10 TV Eyewitness News.
Well, this is John Glenn's big day.
We're all feeling pretty good about it, though, aren't we?
We are. It's
pretty
a big
proud
day.
to have him as an Ohioan. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. An estimated 250,000 people are expected to be there to watch John Glenn and his 6 crewmates take off in the Space Shuttle Discovery. It happens at 2 o'clock this afternoon. Glenn's launch is, of course, our top story today at noon. These are live pictures from the Kennedy Space Center, the crew already on board Discovery. And it's already been a very long day. Bright and early at 5 o'clock this morning, people pulled in and staked out their spots on the Cape. The weather is picture perfect in Florida and the countdown is proceeding as planned. As we begin our countdown to Discovery today, Jerry joins us from our Discovery Update Center. Jerry?
Well, that's right. All 7 astronauts were up around 8 o'clock this morning and out to that pad by 11:15. 10 TV's Dave Kaler and Angela Pace got an early start too this morning. Dave joins us live now at the Kennedy Space Center where the Space Shuttle crew is getting ready to seal that hatch. Right, Dave and Andrea? Shala.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, after months of training and all the media hype, it comes down to one day. Yep. Just one day, and that is today. The 7 astronauts of the Discovery Space Shuttle Discovery are being strapped in, as you saw there a few moments ago. They're out on the pad. They've had a great morning. And this should be one of the largest crowds ever to see the Space Shuttle lift off. We're a liftoff Space Shuttle here at Cape Canaveral, and we understand the #1 fan, the President of the United States, just arrived minutes ago.
But I think the President is going to have to take a back seat to one very important man, because the eyes of the world today are focused on a man from a small town in eastern Ohio, not too far from Columbus. John Glenn is an astronaut once again, and he has already had a very busy morning. John Glenn has put on and taken off this spacesuit more times than he cares to remember. But after waiting 36 years to return to space one more time, that wasn't too much to ask. Like clockwork, Discovery's crew of 7 suited up for the long wait until liftoff. While outside, crews gave the pad its final going over. The fuel has been added, hundreds of thousands of gallons just inside the external tank. By 11 a.m., the crew was finally headed out to the launch pad in a silver van with cheers and camera flashes following. 195 feet high, the crew enters Discovery, strapped inside for the final moments before liftoff. The eyes of the nation are looking at just one spot, Launch Pad 39B. And to give us an idea now of what the crew is going through at this minute is someone who has been through it herself 3 times, our Discovery team expert, Dr. Catherine Sullivan, who is the head of COSI. Now, you've been here, done that. What kinds of last-minute things are the crew members doing right now?
Well, the crew is pretty well done with their last-minute things, certainly the crew on the mid-deck. Once you get strapped in and secured and your buddy's helping you strap in, depart, you're just kind of hanging around and waiting. The commander and pilot up top have several actions they perform for the ground control center here to set up some of the inertial measurement units and configure the computers. That'll be over the next hour or so. It's a pretty quiet time, very attentive to what you hear the rest of the launch control team doing.
Yeah, that was my question. What are you thinking about if you're sitting there? Because I'll be sitting there for almost 2 hours.
Well, there is a lot happening if you hear the several voice loops that the launch control team is communicating on. And those loops are audible inside the cockpit. So you're listening to that, you're following what's happening, paying attention, and just hoping that nothing crops up that really has to keep you home today.
Yeah, but how tough is the wait? This is a long time to be practically upside down.
Well, yes. I always solve that problem by taking a nap. So.
Really? Your mind was relaxed that much that you could just take a nap and not even think about any problems?
My job starts in 1 hour, 8.5 minutes, so.
And there's nothing you can do until then. But this is also a woman who slept well the night before every launch, too.
And I don't understand that either, because I just, in terms of laymen that are sitting out there watching us today, I know they think it's impossible for somebody to do that on such an important mission on any space shuttle flight.
Well, some of us do it.
Well, are you trained that way, though? Is it a mindset you think a lot of the astronauts
you know, it's not 100% across every person who flies. There are a lot of different reactions and adaptations, a lot of different dynamics with your family, and I think everybody's approach to, you know, putting themselves in the right zone at the right mental and physical moment to be ready to go, You know, these guys are going off to carry out 10 days worth of scientific operations on behalf of literally hundreds of people from around the world.
Yeah,
this is not, in that sense, their flight. So they're really getting ready to be very focused and deliver for all those people.
All right, Dr. Sullivan, of course, we're going to be talking to you for the next couple of hours. She's going to kind of walk us through today's liftoff.
You know, just a few minutes ago, President Clinton arrived here in Florida. Air Force One landed at Cape Canaveral, and the motorcade will soon be headed this way. Now, the president will meet with the families of the astronauts, including the wife of John Glenn, Annie Glenn. He'll also view the liftoff from launch control, and maybe even celebrating with the people there after the successful launch. You understand the tradition in that case is a helping of beans and cornbread. Anyway, as the clock winds down, the anticipation continues. It will continue to build all afternoon.
And you know, it's not often that you get an opportunity to see history in the making. Now this noon, all the practicing, all the training, all that is over. And in less than 2 hours, Ohioan John Glenn will go off into space once again. Jerry?
All right, we're going to be with you. Thanks, all three. We'll be back. Another place where emotions are running high today is in John Glenn's hometown of New Concord. 10 TV's Robin Simmons is there. Tell us about that all-night vigil last night, Robin.
Jerry, they got started late last night, 7 in the evening until 7 this morning, praying all night for John Glenn's safe return. And of course, we are here at John Glenn's namesake, John Glenn High School, and kids all over New Concord are getting ready. Let me take you earlier to New Concord Elementary School. It used to be New Concord High School, which is where John Glenn went to school when he was a little bit younger, and the kids got a treat listening to Ellis Deitch, 95-year-old former teacher, coach, and assistant principal to John Glenn, and he told the kids about what he was like when he was a little bit younger. Take a listen to what he talked to them about today.
He was always wanting to succeed in whatever he attempted to do. He would, if he started something, he followed through to the finish.
And it looks like what John Glenn is doing today is definitely a reminder of that. He flew so long ago, back in 1962, finally getting his chance to head back up into space today, Jerry. Very, very excited folks here in New Concord.
Yeah, big day. Few people will be out on the sidewalk today. Thanks, Robin. It's also a big day in Northeast Ohio. Vice President Al Gore will watch the Discovery liftoff with students at John Glenn Elementary School. That's in the Cleveland suburb of Seven Hills. Andrea?
All eyes on the sky, Jerry. Thanks a lot. About 250,000 people, as we said, are in Florida this noon hour. They all turned out to watch today's launch up close and personal, but there are millions of people who didn't make it to Cape Canaveral and will be watching it from home or work on television. If you would like to see the launch on high-definition television, there is only one place in Columbus where you can do that. 10 TV's Luann Stoya is live at COSI with a very special guest. Luann?
Well, I want to tell you, history is being made, Andrea, with our American in orbit. Also, history being made, take a look here, HD high-definition television. And this is where you can see it. We want to show you where we are at COSI. Take a look. We're on the first floor. You can see the sea creatures and dolphins in the background. That exhibit, we're right behind there. Here's one of the classes that's here today at COSI to talk about the event. How many here from Huntington, West Virginia would like to go up in space? Okay. Now I want to ask you, can you tell me who is John Glenn?
John Glenn is the oldest person to go up in space, and he's 77 years old, and this is his second time going up in space.
Okay, and here you see the next generation watching the historic launch here at COSI, and I want to tell you that this is Next Generation TV. You can see it right here at COSI.
Luann, anybody can come?
Anybody can come. We've got plenty of room, and I'd love to see them come down and watch it with us.
All right, Luann, thanks a lot. And on Saturday, a group of students from Columbus Public Schools, high school students, will actually get the chance to talk to Glenn while he's in orbit. They will also do that from COSI. Jerry.
Here's what is ahead leading up to the launch. Around 12:30, they will close the crew hatch. The final launch team briefing comes at 1:39 this afternoon. Then, that's when we'll be sure whether the launch will happen as scheduled. If everything is okay, at 2 o'clock, that big solid rocket booster will ignite and Discovery will lift off.
And great news, it looks like the weather is really going to cooperate. It'll be perfect for today's launch.
Well, we had a pretty good day up here, too. Doppler 10 meteorologist Chris Shumway is in our weather center. Chris?
Right, Jerry. Fair skies all the way from John Glenn's home state down to his new, I guess, adopted state of Florida for the launch. Clear skies now, Cape Canaveral at about 80 degrees, a light northeast wind about 5 to 15. It looks like it couldn't be more perfect for that shuttle launch down there. And again, good weather in central Ohio. And in just a few minutes, I'll be back with our Doppler 10 forecast.
We will look forward to that. Thanks a lot, Chris. And we will also talk about some of the health concerns John Glenn faces with Dr. Bernadine Healy as our countdown to discovery continues next on Eyewitness News.
You're watching 10 TV Eyewitness News with Jerry Revish, Andrea Camburn, and meteorologist Chris Shumway. This is WBNS 10 TV, your 24-hour news source.
Closed captioning is brought to you by the Maternity Center at Doctors West.
John Glenn plucked from the Atlantic in February 1962 after completing nearly 5 hours in orbit, the first American ever to do that. You know, there's been a lot of talk about John Glenn leading up to today, but there are 6 other members of the Discovery crew who worked just as hard to get there. Curtis L. Brown, Jr., commander of the mission. This will be his 5th space flight. Brown is ultimately responsible for the success and safety of the mission. Stephen Lindsay is the pilot, his 2nd flight. He'll also be involved in several experiments on this mission. Stephen K. Robinson is a mission specialist who flew on a shuttle flight last year. He's the payload commander this time out. Dr. Scott Perezinski is a mission specialist trained in emergency medicine. This will be his 3rd flight. He'll be in charge of robotic experiments. Pedro Duque, the first Spaniard to fly in space. He wasn't born when John Glenn went up in 1962. He's a mission specialist this time out. Chiaki Mukai is a heart surgeon and the first Japanese woman to fly in space. She's a payload specialist just like John Glenn. Andrea?
Nice to get to see all the others and learn a little bit about them. You know, there are a lot of places where you can watch the launch, here, there, but there is one popular place for spectators, and it is in Florida. It is NASA's Astronaut Hall of Fame. Last night, some of the original Mercury 7 astronauts were there talking to reporters. One of those folks, 10 TV's Marcy Fleischer, was there, and she joins us now to tell us about the crowds and about last night. Marcy?
Andrea, last night was terrific. Those 4 former Mercury astronauts say they support John Glenn and they wish him Godspeed. As for the crowd, well, take a look for yourself. It is growing. This is a great place to watch the shuttle because we are just 11 miles from the launch pad, and you can see lots of people have already picked the spot they want to watch it from. However, if you wanted one of these top spots, well, Andrea, you had to arrive hours ago. They came early and ready to witness history, in many cases, again.
I think I was 7 years old when John Glenn first went up, and it's one of my most vivid memories, historically speaking, so it's good to be back here again.
This time, Mark brought his 3 daughters. They've traveled all the way from New Jersey.
I think it'll be really exciting to see my first launch, and I've seen launches on like TV and stuff, and in the newspaper, but I've never seen one in real life.
Lori Morris drove from Orlando with her kids.
Mom's really the one who wanted to see history because I think someday when they have kids, they're going to be reading about this in the history book, and it will be cool for them to have pictures and say, I was there when.
The families will watch from the Astronaut Hall of Fame. Just 11 miles from the launch pad, it's a primo spot to watch Discovery blast off. And the museum is preparing to host a liftoff party like none before.
Today is extremely different. This is the most exciting launch day we've had probably since the return to space flight post-Challenger.
Usually close to 5,000 people watch liftoff from here. Today they're expecting even more. Even the Home Shopping Network is in on the excitement.
We're going to sell a space pen that writes upside down.
They'll be broadcasting and selling live all day.
This is the first time we've ever gone live from a shuttle launch, but hopefully not the last.
So as you see, Andrea, there is something here for everyone. Now, in the meantime, there aren't thousands of people here, probably just several hundreds, but the crowd keeps pouring in, and with less than 2 hours, we expect it to keep building. Back to you, Andrea.
Great day, Marcy. Thanks a lot. Now, as soon as the space shuttle lifts off, the focus of attention shifts to Houston, site of mission control at the Johnson Space Center. And Jerry, it's as busy there today as it is in Cape Canaveral.
You know it is. We're going to continue our countdown to discovery when we talk with about John Glenn's health with Dr. Bernadine Healy. But as we look outside, a beautiful day in Columbus as well. Doppler 10 meteorologist Chris Shumway has the forecast when Eyewitness News returns.
Live pictures on this beautiful Thursday from Cape Canaveral. Isn't that something to look at? It really is. In about a half hour, the hatch will be closed and sealed, and checks will be done on the cabin for leaks.
Yeah, they're already in there. 0 to 100 in 4 seconds, and it's up from that. Doppler 10 meteorologist Chris Shumway down here on the ground with us, talking about the forecast.
Yeah, it looks great down there. We're really lucky because it was a little windy earlier in the week, but the winds have died since then, and they have absolutely perfect weather in Cape Canaveral. And you know, we're not doing too bad in Central Ohio. In fact, we have a big night ahead of us. Beggars Night kicks off in a lot of local towns and around Franklin County this evening. Here's your forecast for that time of night. About 6 p.m. will be partly cloudy, a mild 62, and then by 8 o'clock, of course, it'll be completely dark, and about 54. So it's going to be very mild for trick-or-treating, just about ideal conditions for that this evening in Central Ohio. Temperatures this noon, pretty mild, 50s and low 60s on the board, with a 60 right here in Columbus. All this still above average for this time of year, and we'll turn these over probably into mid-60s for a high a little bit later this afternoon. Well, we have had clearing skies today. Had a little bit of a problem with some patchy rural fog early today, but that thinned out quickly. And now as we focus on radar, we see a batch of active weather starting to just emerge in the Mississippi Valley area, Iowa, Wisconsin, Illinois, and Missouri. Looks like an area of storms could develop and be pretty strong out there today. That's the direction we're watching for our next threat of rain. It won't come today because we have a nice little ridge of high pressure and calm, stable air in place. But this little front that stalled out in southern Ohio is actually sort of changing into a warm front back here. So we have very warm, moist air pulling in the Mississippi Valley, and it's hitting some cooler air. We also have a low kind of spiraling here. That will develop that complex of storms. And watch our future track as the computer model shows that trend of rain is moving toward the east-southeast. So maybe by the time you wake up tomorrow, if you have a commute planned early tomorrow morning, we could be in a pocket of showers from maybe 6 or 7 in the morning up till about noontime. So there is that threat early tomorrow to get a shower, and then it looks like by late tomorrow, things will calm back down again just as we get to the weekend. Wrap up this afternoon's forecast. Boy, more sunshine and about 64 for a high. Real nice, and again, the Beggars Night weather looking really good too. Overnight, the low will eventually drop to 46. That'll come at about 5 or 6 tomorrow morning. And then during the day tomorrow, that chance of showers is mainly for the morning. I'd say 7 or 8 o'clock up till perhaps even noon, a threat of a shower. After that, it calms down. Still be mild tomorrow with 66 for the high. And right now, the rest of the Halloween weekend looks good. Halloween day, 62 for a high, dry and partly cloudy. And then here comes the cool weather. You know, we hit November on Sunday, and then by next week, we see those cool highs in the low 50s coming back. Jerry and Andrea.
All right, Chris, thanks again. And clear skies today, as you heard, at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Perfect for the liftoff of the Shuttle Discovery and our own John Glenn.
Mother Nature must love him today. Let's go back down to Dave and Angela on the scene of this history-making day.
You know, it is perfect weather. They could not have asked for a better picture today. The skies are so clear. The sun is shining. It is a wonderful day for a launch. If you got to go into space, this is the day to do it. You know, since John Glenn announced that he was going to be a member of the Discovery crew, there have been questions raised about his health. In fact, just recently it was announced that Glenn would not take part in one of the sleep experiments because he didn't meet all the health requirements.
Yeah, and this day more than any other in the Senator's life is going to test that 77-year-old body of his. And so with that in mind, we'd like to introduce Dr. Bernadine Healy of the Ohio State University Medical School to answer some questions on the health issue. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Great to be here.
Is he too old to fly?
Well, I don't think we can say that because we don't have the answers. And actually, Senator Glenn is going to provide extraordinary information on a very fit 77-year-old man who has clearly some of the age change that occur in anybody when they approach that time, both in their muscles, their bones, their heart, their brain, and we're going to find out. And I think when he comes down smiling, a lot of other men of his age will be after, and women too.
What is going to be the long-range benefit, though, of these studies?
Well, you know, there is an important issue, and that is space flight appears to age people. Now, most of the young astronauts, like Kathy's, when they come back to Earth, most of those changes reverse. But there are some common mechanisms on spaceflight and aging, and by studying the two of them together in one wonderful human being, Senator Glenn, we may be able to tease out and understand what's happening and maybe design interventions that could be helpful for people on Earth.
But John Glenn is not your regular 77-year-old man. He is in incredible shape.
But he is still, he's the best of 77.
Okay.
But he's still, you know, there's still a little bit of white hair there and a few little wrinkles that aren't necessarily in a 30-year-old.
All right, Dr. Healy, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. And right now, back to Jerry and Andrea for the rest of the noon news, but don't go away because we're going to be here for Blast Off.
We're glued. Thanks a lot.
Thanks. There are other health-related experiments on board Discovery, including breakthrough research in curing cancer. We can learn a lot.
We can. We're gonna. Team coverage of John Glenn's return to space continues this noon.
But first, we want to tell you about a quick programming note. Due to extended news coverage this afternoon, we will rebroadcast The Young and the Restless and the Bold and the Beautiful tonight at 1 a.m. So if you're not going to be up, set your VCRs. You don't want to miss that. But that'll be 1 a.m. this morning.
We'll be back. The sounds of the crowd cheering at the Kennedy Space Center as the crew leaves for that launch pad.
Hey, we're just getting started with this countdown to Discovery.
We'll take you right up to liftoff with our live Mission to Discovery special.
Live reports from Tino Ramos in Houston, Angela and Dave and Marcy Fleischer in Cape Canaveral.
Stay with us. We're going to be all over this launch this afternoon.
All afternoon. It's an historic day for us. Stay with us, and we'll see you later.
Her name is Discovery. Her mission to explore. A mighty ship, a testament to how far NASA has come.
In Project Mercury, what we were trying to do was find out, could you even do this?
Ignition and liftoff of the Space Shuttle Discovery as NASA embarks on the final
Now
mission
we've rocketed
to
into
dock
space
Russia's
more than
space
100
station
times. But today we go back to where we began.
If it's what I want to do, and the team's behind us, and the kids are too, 100%.
36 years. The suit is different. The walk much the same. The pride of Ohio once again breaking new boundaries.
I was scared then. I am now, but
it's hard to describe. It really is hard to describe all the emotion at the Kennedy Space Center today. A mixture of excitement and apprehension. The countdown to Discovery for John Glenn's return to space, of course, rolls on. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dave Kaler.
And I'm Angela Pace, and we are back here at the Kennedy Space Center at Cape Canaveral in Florida. We are live at the 10 TV Eyewitness Discovery Team Command Post with the shuttle in the background, and of course the crew is on board right now. The hatch has been closed. We're told there was a minor delay because the cooling unit in the suit of the pilot had to be swapped with that of one of the mission specialists. Apparently that was not working as well as it should be, but that's all taken care of now. All is well, and as far as we know, the shuttle is still a go.
And for the next 2.5 hours, we are going to bring you live coverage of the launch of the Shuttle Discovery, and you'll witness John Glenn's dream of returning to space.
Now, he's been waiting for this for more than 36 years, 1962 when he went up the first time. Glenn and the 6 other astronauts, they are now in the shuttle. As we said, they're all strapped in. Within the last few minutes, the hatch door was closed, and the crew members from NASA, right now, they are checking the seal of the hatch, making sure that there are no leaks there. The Discovery crew got up at 7 o'clock this morning, and they have been moving around ever since then. As part of 10 TV's Discovery Crew team coverage, we'd like to bring in someone who is very familiar with everything that's been going on here over the last few days. Dr. Catherine Sullivan. She is a former shuttle astronaut, has been on 3 missions. More importantly to the folks in Columbus, though, she's head of COSI. Now, what is going on right now? They're all strapped in, they're waiting. They've got, about an hour and a half to go.
Right, and most of the crew has not much really to do during that time. There'll be a set of cabin leak checks, changing the inertial measurement unit system for the guidance of the orbiter, setting up some of the computers, and an increasing set of things the commander and pilot will do as you get right down towards the final liftoff. The rest of the crew is thinking ahead to what's coming after liftoff, or thinking about their last expectations of this great ride. But they're usually pretty intent in listening to what the launch control team is doing.
We just had I just heard launch control saying something in our ears. I can't make it out where they are, but where would they be about right now?
Once the hatch closeout crew finishes its exterior work on the hatch, they verify all that stuff, they pull back away from the pad, and one of the next key events from inside the cockpit is the commander doing a set of cabin leak checks for Ground Control Center.
All right.
Now, early this morning, they started loading up the tanks with fuel. How much fuel are we talking about?
Oh, that's a great space trivia question, and I forget the exact number, but it's something like 520,000 gallons of liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen. And you notice
the external tanks.
The external tank, right? And you notice now that you see shots of the vehicle on the pad, you'll see that steam venting off of the tanks. It's chilled down. It's super cold. And it really makes a difference when you go out to the pad on launch day. The vehicle is groaning and creaking. You stand out on the access arm, you would almost swear the vehicle is alive and definitely wants to leave.
It's as anxious to leave probably as the crew is then.
It's hard to be more anxious than the crew, yeah.
Okay, we're looking at live pictures here now, Dr. Sullivan. What's going on here?
This is the hatch closeout crew in the white room. That room is 195 feet above the crawler surface. And they have a set of final hookups and connections and fasteners and plugs to put in place so the outside surface and seal of the hatch is perfect. Next time the hatch will be opened, ideally, is by them again on the runway at the end of the mission.
All right, and we're sure that's the way it's going to happen, too.
Yeah.
Dr. Sullivan, of course, we're going to be back with you, but 10 TV, of course, is covering every single angle of this Discovery mission. We have crews located here in Florida. We have them in Houston at Mission Control. We have them in New Concord, which is John Glenn's hometown, and several locations around Columbus as the folks there are watching this launch. And our 10 TV team includes Ohio News Network anchor Deborah Knapp, who is also here at Cape Canaveral. Deborah?
Hi, Angela. Hi, Dave. Yes, I'm out in the media masses, I guess. Hundreds of people are surrounding me at this time. And, you know, it's kind of the calm before the big event. A lot of the hustle and bustle was going on earlier today, but obviously the astronauts are in place and ready to go. So the most of us are just setting up, doing some last-minute interviews, prepping for the actual launch. So it is pretty quiet, unusually quiet at this time, something we haven't seen so much of in the past couple of days. So everybody is gearing up for the big event, which is at just in less than a couple of hours.
108.
All right, thank you very much, Deborah.
Right. She's over at the museum. Marcy?
Hi guys, I'm about 11 miles from you at the Astronaut Hall of Fame, and it's pretty much like a carnival here. Take a look. We've got hundreds and hundreds of people who have flooded the front grass here. This is one of the most terrific places to watch the launch because it's right over the water, as I said, 11 miles. Lots of things for the families to do here. They've got moonwalks and a barbecue. The excitement is certainly building. I know it's also building somewhere else, back in Ohio, in New Concord. That's where Robin Simmons is in John Glenn's hometown. Robin?
That is right, Marcy. Let me tell you, the kids are just starting to file in here at the gym at John Glenn High School, of course, named for Ohio's favorite son. The kids are going to be watching the launch on that projector screen. I'm not sure if you can see it there behind me, but they are filing in here and ready and waiting for liftoff. And we are going to take it now to our nation's capital, where before the senator retired, he was calling his second home, and out to Rhonda Pence.
I'm at the National Air and Space Museum here in Washington, D.C. Now, this is the most visited museum in the world, but as you can imagine, visitorship is even up. Why? Because right behind me, Friendship 7, the Mercury capsule, that's what John Glenn rode in when he made that first historic mission orbiting the Earth 3 times. Let's go now to Houston with Tino Ramos.
Thank you, Rhonda. Welcome to Johnson Space Center. We are here at Mission Control. We just a short time ago got a rare glimpse and a rare talk with the flight director, Phil Engeloff. We asked him if everything was ready. He gave us the thumbs up on it, so they're just kind of sitting tight, waiting for things to take place. We're here in the training facility. Much of the astronauts are very familiar with this because it's here where they go through much of the mission as well as the flight plan for this thing. And coming up a little bit later, we're going to explain to you some of the things that they're going through that in terms of the launch and when they move up there and the mission itself, as well as we'll take a look at some of the astronauts that are joining John Glenn on this historic trip back into space. In the meantime, let's go ahead and go back to Columbus to Chuck Strickler at our State House.
All right, Tino, and good afternoon. We are reporting live from the crypts of the State House and the bowels really down here. And we have 2 monitors set up here in coordination with our cable affiliate, ONN. The big one here, the big screen, and also this television here right in the crypt section. We are told that a high school, or rather a group of kids from a local school are going to be coming by here, watching the launch as we approach liftoff time, and we're going to be getting some reaction from them, as well as some of the state workers here who have gathered here. You can see them. They are getting ready. Of course, we're still a time away from the actual liftoff itself. You know, this is the base of support for John Glenn. 1972, he really began his political career in the U.S. Senate, and he's the first person to win 4 consecutive terms. So a lot of people are going to be very interested in watching exactly what happens as we get ready to lift off and as we actually see the blast off right here. So we'll be back here and get plenty of reaction from the State House. Now, back to you.
And we are at COSI, where we are watching the launch preparations on high-definition television. It's very exciting. In fact, things have been so clear here that I've actually had to touch the screen to make sure what we were watching was not a window or something that was real. Now, we are at COSI. We are on the first floor of COSI. There's plenty of room. You, if you're interested here in the Columbus area, can come and take a look at this pioneering effort. Now, take a look where we are here in the area as we get set up for the launch. Now, keep in mind, back in 1962, folks, about 8,000 people came to Grand Central Station in New York to watch the launch, and that was historic. Now, here in 1998, we're watching this historic launch on high-definition television, and you can do it right here. Also watching launch preparations are kids at Clinton Middle School here in Columbus. Kelly Hudson is there. Kelly?
I'm Kelly Hudson here at Clinton Middle School, and yes, I'm with the Young Astronauts Club, about a dozen of them that are going to get a chance to see this blast live. Many of them have already said they want to be astronauts because they want to know what it feels like to be able to float weightless, and they're going to get a chance to see it. History today, particularly for John Glenn. So we'll bring you more of their reaction coming up. Now, here's Lisa Kick on the OSU campus in Bricker Hall.
That's right. We're standing right outside the office of the president. President Kerwin is in Florida, enjoying it firsthand up close for himself. But folks are going to start gathering here, other students and staff members who are all excited about Glenn going into space. And they'll be watching the mission right here on this big monitor set up in Bricker Hall. They are excited about this mission, but they're also excited after he lands about his new mission right here at Ohio State University, the John Glenn Institute for Public Service and Public Policy. Something very interesting. They're kicking off Space Week here at Ohio State. We'll have more on that and, of course, reaction to the launch of the Discovery. That's coming up in just a little bit. But first, let's go ahead and check out Penny Moore. Penny, you are probably with some folks who are very excited to see Glenn go up in space.
I am, Lisa. These are the people who remember the first time he went up in space 36 years ago. I'm at the Second and Summit Senior Rec Center on the short north side of Columbus. All of these folks are getting ready to watch it. And I want you to meet a woman who remembers John Glenn's first shot very well. This is Irene Evans. And Irene, I'm not going to say how old you are, except that you're 2 years older than Senator Glenn. And would you do this if you had the chance?
Oh, sure. Most of my life's behind me, and even if I didn't get back, wouldn't be that much to lose. That would be fun.
It would be fun, and I'm sure Senator Glenn feels exactly the same way, Irene. We're going to stay with these folks and watch the big launch all afternoon, and then we'll have some more reaction for you. Dave and Angela, these are the people who care the most that a senior citizen is making this space launch today.
And a senator too, Penny. You have that right. You have absolutely right. You know, for people, young people, and the more seasoned folks like Penny's friends there, this mission really is quite an adventure. It's an adventure for us too, because this is a joint broadcast between WBNS, 10 TV, Eyewitness News, and ONN, our cable sister news network.
And when you're talking about the experiments on board, though, you're talking about the medical researchers. This is a dream for the medical researchers, but particularly when they are studying about the effect of aging and the aging in the human body and the aging in spaceflight.
And here to tell us more about that is Dr. Bernadine Healy. She is the dean of the Ohio State University Medical School. And so, of course, you have been following all these medical experiments pretty closely, because this is, as you just told me, a medical mission first.
This is a medical mission, and it's focusing very concretely on aging issues in space. Virtually all of the experiments pretty much relate to aging. Things like loss of muscle and bone mass in space, sleep problems that occur in space where your sleep gets fragmented, you wake up, your biological rhythms are distorted, cardiovascular changes in the EKG. The whole thing orients towards this.
What will be the toughest part that John Glenn will have to face, though, in terms of his 77-year-old body? Are we talking about a cardiovascular, or are we talking about things that happen in the weightlessness?
Well, I think in terms of, remember, he is both an experimenter and a subject.
Right.
In terms
He's
of
a
the
guinea pig.
experimenter, he has to wear this electrode cap that, if you've seen it, looks like it would be very difficult to sleep in, and he's going to have to sleep in that several nights. In terms of his own stresses and strains on his body, I think initially with all those G's, probably cardiovascular. But once he gets up into space, he'll be floating and happy as a baby, I'm sure, with zero gravity, deconditioned or not.
Now, with the zero gravity, we're talking about no sense of balance at all. Is it going to be tougher then for Senator Glenn to learn to move around? When he was in Friendship 7, he was strapped down, didn't have to go anywhere. Now he's going to be mobile.
This is a new experience for Senator Glenn. He never really had to deal with this. But you know, some people, some school of thought say it'll be harder for an older man because they already have some age changes. Others say maybe it will be less hard because he already has had some deterioration there, and he won't feel it as much.
Well, he's admitted in training he's not as agile as he used to be, and he doesn't bend like the young guys, I think was what he said earlier.
Who does?
And it comes with all of us at age.
That's right.
He's going to be a pioneer teaching us more about it.
I can't wait till he gets back and teaches us all something. Dr. Healy, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Okay, stay with us. We are going to take you to the Astronaut Hall of Fame, where a lot of folks are watching this launch.
And you're looking at live pictures right now of the countdown. Shuttle Discovery takes off at 2 o'clock. This is your 24-hour news source. We will be right back with Mission Discovery. As the clock ticks, here's what we can expect to happen in the next few minutes. If I missed the cue there, I'm listening to the mission control in my ears. At 12:49, and actually a little bit earlier than that, the Discovery's hatch was closed and was sealed.
And then at 1:39, the launch team will brief the launch director. That's actually a status test, we're told.
And NASA will start the automatic ground launch sequencer at T-minus 9 minutes. And we see the graphic there. At 12:49, the hatch closed. 1:30, and actually we're ahead of that. 1:39, the PM briefings, as Angela was saying, and at T-minus 9 minutes, the what they call the sequencer. Wait a minute, I got to come back together. What is the sequencer?
There are two sequencers involved in the final stages of this. This one at 9 minutes is a ground launch sequencer. It's actually software in the Launch Control Center computers. At 31 seconds, that sequencer will hand over to the onboard computers of the shuttle, and they will control the final 31 seconds. And all of the key events, the starting of the main engines, the checking that they're at full power level, and the ignition of the solid rocket motors.
All right.
Okay, so kind of a shift of command there for a little while.
External to internal.
All right, thanks.
You know, the Kennedy Space Center is packed with astronauts from the previous missions. There are nearly 3,800 journalists here as well, all over the world, and they are expecting a crowd of 250,000 people right here at the Cape to watch this.
And Marcy Flesher is live right now at the Astronaut Hall of Fame, where we understand there is quite a huge crowd. Marcy?
That's right, Angela. The crowd keeps getting bigger, and I'm with one individual who may not know as much as Kathy Sullivan, but give him some time, he will. Will Upton, you may recall, he's part of our 10 TV broadcast team. Will, when we met up this morning, you told me you were nervous. How come?
Well, I'm just nervous and yet excited because it's my first shuttle launch, and, well, you know.
You warned me that we may feel some of the effects of the Discovery shuttle. What do you mean?
Well, the wind's blowing pretty hard in our direction, so it's blowing that way, and the shuttle's over there, so we might get some of the smoke and a little bit of the flame, maybe, fumes, and then we're going to feel a lot of the earth shake.
Will, how is it that you know so much?
From going to space camp, and I've read a lot about space and all that.
And you told me last night you want to be an astronaut. You still feel that way this morning, huh?
Yes, I do.
How come?
Because it's more exciting now, because I get to see them go up and watch the shuttle actually go up.
All right, Will. Well, we are putting you to work today. That's right. Later tonight on Eyewitness News, Will file his own report. You will see it through the eyes of a youngster, and I could never find a better youngster than this one, Angela. I'm afraid he's going to take my job.
Marcy, he is prime for your job and my job, and I'm telling you, we're going to be back here in a few years, and we are going to be covering the Will Upton shuttle launch,
Right,
okay?
yeah.
You mark my words there. The decision for John Glenn to return to space was not an easy one for his family to make. His son, his daughter, his wife, Annie, they didn't want him to go, but eventually, Annie Glenn came around.
And Kurt Brown, the commander, asked me if I would like to attend classes and also to watch them in training. I did that. I learned an awful lot. I watched them all in training. I got to know the crew, and I was in technical classes. A lot of it was over my head, but I learned, and I came home 100% behind the whole thing.
And the crew was allowed to spend a few hours every day with their loved ones since they arrived here on Monday. Right now, the families are in a private viewing area so that they can see the Discovery taking off. Right now, you can see the countdown clock, and what is that? That is T-minus 48 minutes and 19, 14, 13 seconds.
Yeah, it's going down.
So the countdown is definitely on.
You know, she is such a fantastic woman, and she has lived with John Glenn as a Marine, as a fighter pilot, as all of that. And Annie and John, of course, were childhood sweethearts in New Concord, Ohio. And we will be going to New Concord in just a few minutes.
And we'll have more from the Kennedy Space Center right after this.
You're watching Mission Discovery, special coverage from 10 TV Eyewitness News and the Ohio News Network, with 10 TV's Dave Kaler, Angela Pace, and ONN's Deborah Knapp.
It's an icon of American space history, and it's been here since the beginning. And right now, all eyes are on the countdown clock as it ticks away the hours and the minutes and the seconds. Well, our own ONN, Ohio News Network anchor, Deb Knapp, is down by the clock, and she's going to give us the latest on that. Deb?
Hi, Dave. Exactly.
Hi.
There's a lot of attractions out here. One of the biggest attractions, as you mentioned, is this countdown clock, and a lot of our eyes are fixed on it. We have to remember this isn't exactly the time that it will go off, but we'll explain that in just a little bit. This clock is actually a constant reminder as to when history will happen. This clock shows the real countdown is on. NASA powered up, and the clock started ticking at 8 Monday morning. A tradition 20 years old for NASA. Bruce Buckingham has watched these numbers count down several times.
It's got a varied history behind it. We use it all the time for these launch countdowns. I think anybody that watches a shuttle launch on TV will recognize this clock.
It's not your typical clock. In fact, you would not rely on it for true time.
I needed that clock to wake me up this morning. I was running late.
It stops 7 times in the period leading up to the launch. And unless you're around NASA types a lot, it's a little confusing.
So I think we're kind of embarrassed that we don't know because we feel like we should.
You're going to tell me?
The stop times are called holds.
But the holds are in place so that if we get behind in some of our operations, we can catch up, or if we just need to have a spot where everybody regroups at the exact same time.
The holds can range from 11 hours to 10 minutes.
The last 2 holds we're going to see today are at T-minus 20 minutes and T-minus 9 minutes, and those holds will last for 10 minutes.
This may be the only place time stands still.
But it's very dramatic.
Brief moments for NASA to take a deep breath and prepare for liftoff. You know, Dave, this has a lot of history behind it, as I mentioned. There was actually one point Bruce Buckingham was telling us where the countdown clock was stopped at practically 00. That's right before the shuttle was supposed to go off. They had some minor technical problems in the engine. I would suppose that's a little bit more than minor, but they did hold off on letting the shuttle take off. Basically what happened, 6 minutes or 6 seconds until blast off. The booster rockets are lit, and then by the time it gets down to 00, it's off the pad. It's too late, and they are gone.
All right, Deb, thanks a lot. Deb Knapp of Ohio News Network, and we are in partnership with the Ohio News Network, and we thank you very much for that report.
Okay, now we talk about the launch. Now something very important happens at that launch, because as soon as the Discovery shuttle is just inches off the ground. Then control shifts from here in Florida to the Johnson Space Center in Houston. That's where mission control is. And then for the next 9 days, the astronauts and the mission then are in the hands of the workers at mission control in Houston. That's where our Tino Ramos is. He's been there for quite some time. Tino, what is the mood there at Houston?
Yeah, you know, it's obviously the calm before the storm, much like your place as well. But you're right, you know, all the attention goes to the Kennedy Space Center because that's all the glitz and glamour of the launch itself. But it's here where the mission itself is pretty much handled on mission control. It's kind of funny because all this attention that we've been going through has been pretty much focused on John Glenn. But well, you have to remember the crew of the Discovery really does have a leader. The leader's name is Kurt Brown, and he's had a tough time trying to keep his astronauts focused on the mission itself because of all the media hype and all the attention to John Glenn, but John Glenn has commented that he's done a wonderful job in doing so. Now, Kurt Brown, the commander, he'll be on the simulator behind me. He'll be on the back side of it. If I can show you this model here, he'll be sitting up on the flight deck. He'll be looking out this particular window, and it's right now when he has to pay attention closely to the launch, mission, as well as the landing. Curtis Brown, Discovery Mission Commander for STS-95, 42 years old and is native to North Carolina. Brown is a lieutenant colonel with the U.S. Air Force. He will be the veteran of this mission. This is Brown's 5th flight into space, already logging 977 hours in orbit. He has been an astronaut with NASA since 1987. His first flight into space happened 5 years later. He's been aboard the Shuttle Endeavour and Atlantis, working on such projects like the joint U.S. and Japan life science experiments. And he's taken part in numerous experiments related to the future space station. The Discovery mission is the last flight before construction begins on the space station. Brown says of the 5 flights in space, this mission will be his busiest.
We have something for everyone on this flight. We have science that ranges from astronomy to medical life sciences, which is a big part, to material processing, to biology. You name it, we have it on STS-95.
Curtis Brown, Discovery Mission Commander for STS-95. Now, I did get a chance to talk with Commander Brown a couple of times. I've been following this for the past 4 or 5 months, and I talked with him here at the Johnson Space Center, while they were training on some of the facilities behind me. What's kind of interesting about Kurt Brown is that he's been not only being able to keep his crew focused, but he's also been able to keep them kind of lighthearted. They joke around quite a bit. They were joking around. Matter of fact, when they came back here, or when they came from the Johnson Space Center to the Kennedy Space Center for the launch itself, Angela, Dave, you saw them just kind of laughing, prodding, poking at each other. They have their own little nicknames for each other, so you can probably let Kurt Brown be responsible for that, for keeping these guys up, focused, and ready to go.
All right, Tino, we're going to put you in charge of finding out what those nicknames are, okay?
I do have some.
Okay, we'll get back to you on that. Thanks a lot, Tino. Tino Ramos reporting live from Houston, Mission Control. And Tino will be in Houston, remain there throughout the mission, and he will be there when the shuttle lands right here at Kennedy Space Center on November the 6th. Well, we have a bird's eye view right now as the countdown to Discovery continues.
And we are going to give you a first-hand look at what's happening right now with the crew as the live coverage of the Discovery mission watches the clock right here on 10 TV. Back in a moment.
You're watching Mission Discovery, special coverage from 10 TV Eyewitness News and the Ohio News Network, with 10 TV's Dave Kaler, Angela Pace, and ONN's Deborah Knapp.
And welcome back as the clock continues to count down for the launch of Discovery and John Glenn's return to space.
And our own expert, Dr. Catherine Sullivan, joins us now as we continue to watch the clock. And Dr. Sullivan, you seem to be a little bit concerned because there are still people on the launch pad.
Well, the crew that closes out and secures the hatch normally finishes its activities and leaves as the countdown clock hits the 20-minute point. They had a little bit of a slowdown getting the hatch closed. They seem to be finishing up now, so you just watch that activity very carefully, because unless the cabin leak checks get complete and the hatch properly closed, you've got a problem you're going to have to solve. So it's one of those critical final moments. Get that door closed properly.
All right, now as the clock ticks, here's what can we expect to happen in the next few minutes. And Dr. Sullivan, correct us if we are wrong here with these times. At T-minus 7.5 minutes, the crew access arm to the orbiter will be retracted.
And then at T-minus 6 minutes and 15 seconds, NASA will start the mission recorders.
And at T-minus 5 minutes, the auxiliary power units will be started.
So, Dr. Sullivan, are we okay on that so far?
We're okay?
That's right. We'll also be watching real carefully at 20 minutes, T-minus 20 minutes, and holding, actually, just before the hold. They'll shift the computers over to the flight mode.
And that is a planned hold at 20 minutes?
It's a planned 10-minute hold at 20, and then another planned 10-minute hold at 9, which is really sort of the final count to 10, take your last breath, lets everybody hunker down and focus. All the heavy stuff happens inside of 9 minutes.
And then it all goes from there.
We hope so.
All right, Dr. Sullivan. You know, John Glenn's mission in space is for medical reasons, but everyone was surprised last week when it was announced that he was not going to take part in one very special experiment that has to do with aging. So some critics now are actually questioning the senator's role in this mission.
He ought to be going to space because it's a fun thing to do. But I think the basic reason he is going is because he is John Glenn and because he's a senator. Attention to detail.
Story Musgrave knows how NASA works. He's a 30-year veteran. He repaired the Hubble telescope, earning him the nickname, the man who saved NASA. Now Musgrave is slamming the space program and the aging experiments Glenn will be performing.
There is no aging program. There is no program. This is a one-shot.
And maybe that is true. One of Glenn's key experiments was the effect of sleep on an aging body. But in August, NASA quietly pulled Glenn off that study for a medical reason that has remained undisclosed. And a New York newspaper working on the Glenn story requested through the Freedom of Information Act all government documents saying that Glenn is fit to fly. NASA wrote back saying that no documentation responsive to the request was located. So as John Glenn is poked and prodded, will it really be in the name of science? And our Marcy Fleischer got a chance to talk to Dr. Bernadine Healy of the OSU Medical School about the experiments involving John Glenn and space and aging.
There is some controversy surrounding John Glenn's return to space. Is this a scientific experiment or is it a publicity stunt? Dr. Bernadine Healy, thank you for joining us. Your feelings on that, science or PR?
Well, I think there's science here. I think that there are a lot of very intriguing questions about aging in space. Aging is accelerated in space. You and I don't want to go up there. And I think that they're getting the appropriate measures. They will get information. It is not the kind of experiment you could do on Earth where you could use hundreds of people up there. You have to be limited to a few data points, a few individuals. But we will definitely get scientific information. If in addition, we all feel good about it and America sees John Glenn as our hero, that's not so bad.
John Glenn, not a young man, 77 years old. What can this do to his body?
Well, we don't really know. Really, he is almost 80. We know that your cardiovascular system, your lung system get very stiff as you get older. There are a lot of quick shifts when he goes from 3Gs to weightlessness, and we really don't know. And they're going to be determining that up there. Hopefully, if there are some problems that he has, they will only be minor, and we'll find out about those problems.
Once in orbit, what do you think he will feel being the age he is?
Well, when they first go into orbit, all astronauts get a lot of blood that goes into their head. Their face gets swollen, they get a stuffy nose. They also have balance problems and sometimes dizziness and actually sometimes vomiting, nausea. More than half of astronauts have that feeling. Now, older people may have that worse. Remember, when John Glenn went up on Friendship 7, he was strapped in, he was up there for 5 hours, he never felt any dizziness, imbalance, or sickness to his stomach. He might experience that on this trip.
You got a chance to sit down with him not so long ago. What do you suspect he's feeling right now?
I think he is in the zone. I think he is focusing on what he's about to do. I don't even think he's paying attention to all of the world watching him. He is focusing on those experiments. He very much wants to make this a scientific medical mission.
To make it that, do you feel that we have to continue to send senior citizens into space?
Well, I wouldn't go that far. I mean, he is not your typical senior citizen. I think we do have to get more information about people who are older, and if we are going to have a space station, and we know that would be a major commitment, we do have to have this kind of information. This is coming perhaps sooner than we normally would have expected. We have a lot of data to get on people in their 40s and 50s.
You had a chance to sit down with John Glenn a couple weeks ago, but this morning you spoke with his daughter Lynn, who has not been a huge fan of this flight. How is she doing, and how is her mother Annie doing?
Well, I think Lynn came out and said what most of the family believed and were feeling in their hearts, which is if she had it her way, her father would not go back into space, and if she could stop it, she would stop it in a heartbeat. However, she did say unequivocally that tomorrow with blastoff, she is with her father, heart and soul. She will be there rooting along with everyone else.
We will all be rooting. Thank you very much for joining us. Dr. Bernadine Healy, the Dean of the Ohio State School of Medicine.
All right, thank you very much, Marcia. You're looking at the shuttle Discovery right there, and even though we've been talking largely about John Glenn's role in this mission, which is purely medical, most of this mission is dedicated to experiments with robotics and other areas, so it is not a completely, totally medical mission.
Well, when we come back, we're going to take you all around Columbus and show you how many people are getting ready to watch this liftoff.
But first, you're looking right now at live pictures of the shuttle as the countdown to Discovery continues. We'll be right back.
Live from the Kennedy Space Center, 10 TV Eyewitness News presents Countdown to Discovery, John Glenn's return to space.
And right now you're looking at a live shot of the Space Shuttle Discovery on the launch pad right there with its nose up, getting ready for the taking off to the heavens with on board, of course, John Glenn and 6 others.
That's right, and as far as we know right now, checking our watches against the shot clock over there, shot clock, I'm talking basketball now, the countdown clock, it
the
seems
NBA's
that
still
everything, that's right, I'm dying because I'm going through NBA withdrawal, but it seems that everything is a go. There aren't any major problems going on, and it looks as though the launch is going to take off at 2 o'clock, and again, the weather here is just perfect.
It is, and we've had jets flying around here, and we talked to Dr. Sullivan a few moments ago, and she says that's part of the pre-flight ritual. Dr. Sullivan, can you explain that? They're checking for, of course, they don't have to worry about visibility today.
That's right. Ceiling and visibility are not a problem today, but there's a specialized business jet that's been converted to fly like the orbiter flies, which means make it very clunky so it drops fast. And Jim Weatherby, who's the current head of flight crew operations, he'll be flying profiles on that to make sure the crosswinds are within limits, to pick up any handling quality information that he might want to relay to Kurt. There is an abort case that the orbiter can fly that bends it back around and brings it back to the launch site if something big happens within the first several minutes.
So they take every precaution then?
Every bit of data you can add is good data to have.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Sullivan.
We want to get an update now on the countdown, and let's head over to Deb Knapp, the Ohio News Network. Deb?
Well, Dave and Angela, you know, last time John Glenn went up into space, about 400 people were here to cover the event. This year, this STS-95 mission that he will be taking off on, NASA received nearly 4,000 requests for media credentials to be here. So it's who knows actually how many people will be here. But you know, we met one fella who has covered Glenn almost practically all of his own life, and he's here to capture it all again. If you look at the faces of the media covering this shuttle mission, many weren't even around during John Glenn's first flight on Friendship 7, or they don't remember.
She's beautiful.
But Ralph Morse, a retired Life magazine photographer, not only remembers, but he spent many days covering it. He was one of the first to capture Glenn as a space rookie.
I was assigned to cover it. My assignment also was, we know the cities the 7 men live, but we don't know their names. Whoever lives in Virginia, you go home with afterwards. Be John Glenn. That's how, and I went home with John that evening, and we became...
Just like the space program is giving John Glenn another shot.
Focus. Take.
Life magazine is doing the same for Morse.
I've been retired for 10 years, and they asked me to come back to cover John, and I said, no, this is for young people. It's not for us 81-year-old people.
But after placing a call to his good friend, the man most of us are here to see, he changed his mind.
John has been a hero all through his life in the Marines. He was our first astronaut. He's a great senator. No, you got a real American hero, so therefore the public will automatically do it.
Is there anybody else? You know Ralph Morse, he is just a gentleman. He's a great person. He's like your next door neighbor, and he's covered this since the beginning. Again, he retired 10 years ago. He came back for this. I asked him if there's anybody else who could pull him out of retirement, and he said, no, this is all about a friendship.
All right,
Deb,
thank you very much. You know, our Marcy Fleischer has been standing by live at the Astronaut Hall of Fame, where quite a crowd is gathering there. Marcy?
Angela, in about the last half hour, the crowd has really been growing. Take a look behind me. There are probably several hundred now on the front lawn of the Astronaut Hall of Fame. They tend to gravitate towards that corner there. That's because that is the very best spot to see Launch Pad 39B. It's about 11 miles away, and if you stand in that corner, you will see the Discovery Shuttle liftoff. Here at the Astronaut Hall of Fame, they've got some fabulous exhibits. They've also got a very special program called Space Camp. Earlier this week, we caught up with some campers from Ohio. Hopefully we'll hear from those campers later. Angela, lots of kids, and Dave, lots of kids come down to participate in the camp. Those kids who were lucky enough to be here this week obviously get an extra thrill. They get to watch John Glenn live, and they're not on the lawn. They get to stand on top of the building. So a very special privilege if you've attended Space Camp. David, Angela?
All right, Marcy. Thank you very much, and we will be back with you in just a minute.
There you see the countdown clock. We're at 20 minutes and 9 seconds, and we will find out there will be a 20-minute hold here. We want to go to Dr. Sullivan right now to explain to us, Catherine, what are they going to do at this time, and why is this built in at 20 minutes?
There are two 10-minute built-in holds between now and the launch, Dave. This 10-minute hold at T-minus 20 and another at 9. It's really just a bit of a benchmark. Everybody pause for a second. Every controller you'll see in the Launch Control Center has some other people behind them supporting them with additional data. Talk to your colleagues, make sure everything is synced up and you're ready to go. The entire team will review the launch window open and close times, any final little bits of hold constraints that have changed.
What is the crew doing at this time?
Crew's really just sitting and listening.
I mean,
there's no particular crew action required. You're listening again. You're really listening to the launch control team go through its paces at this point. Few more switches for the commander and PLT to throw in the remaining 20 minutes, but all on specific request from the launch control team.
This hold is for how long?
This is a 10-minute hold.
Okay.
The voice. Let's listen in to Lisa Malone talking about what's happening here.
She's joined on the console by the weather flight director, Wayne Hale, himself a veteran launch flight director, and he'll be working with the weather forecasters here in Houston to determine if conditions at possible contingency landing sites meet the shuttle's launch commit criteria. Weather forecasts are continuing to look promising to support today's launch of Discovery.
You'll hear Lisa talking about a lady at Mission Control Center. The flight director for Ascent is Linda Ham. And the female voice you'll hear once the vehicle clears the tower is astronaut Susan Still, Ascent Capcom.
This is the second time that Flight Director Linda Ham, Capcom Susan Still, led the flight control team for a shuttle ascent.
Through the entire 43-hour countdown. Two more, this one and one more remaining.
Horowitz is in contact with Chief Astronaut Charlie Precourt, flying the weather aircraft at the Kennedy Space Center. He's been flying both a T-38 and the Shuttle training.
He's talking about the jets we were talking about a few moments ago.
Exactly, the weather jets.
Yeah.
You know, there are tens of thousands of people right down here in Florida who are waiting for the launch of the Shuttle Discovery. But of course, there are plenty of folks back home in Central Ohio who are also watching this launch. And our Kelly Hudson is at One Columbus School with a very special group of young people. Kelly?
Well, you know, the Discovery astronauts have a captive audience right here at Clinton Middle School. I'm with the Young Astronauts Club, and they're all anxious to see that rocket take off. But first, we want to hear from Justin Adams. He's 11 and a half years old, and he's not certain he wants to go up with this ride, but maybe in the future. Justin, tell me about your hopes of maybe being an astronaut one day.
Because I got good grades in science and math last year and this year, so I might become an astronaut when I get out of college.
What are you looking forward to here in about 35 minutes when that rocket takes off? What are you hoping to see?
The rocket going up in space.
And what's going to be most interesting for you?
That a 77-year-old man is going up in space, so I get to talk to him at COSI.
Oh, that'll be exciting. You said before you also were interested in the weightlessness aspect of it all. Why?
See how it feels, how to float in space.
Maybe you'll be able to do that one day.
I might.
You might. Keep up those good grades, you can do anything. Math and science is a lot of what these students learn in the Young Astronauts Club, Angela and Dave. And they also get a chance to go to Rickenbacker, the air base, and actually get a feel for what aeronautics is all about. But today, you can't beat the lesson they're going to get right here in the school library as they watch Discovery take off.
Okay,
Thanks
Kelly.
a lot, Kelly.
That's great. Listen, 10 TV is also live at COSI, and of course, that's Catherine Sullivan's home, I guess, so to speak. All right. Luann Stoya is there, and the kids are doing something special there. What's going on, Luann?
That's right, Dave. I want to tell Catherine that everybody's asking about her as well. So best wishes from COSI in Columbus to all the crew down there. Now, we have probably the next best thing to being there here at COSI. We are watching the launch and the preparations on high-definition television. It would be the future of television. And this pioneering adventure, if you will, is being watched by lots of folks in Central Ohio coming here to COSI. One of those groups is from Hocking College, and Jared Allen is here from New Lexington. Jared, why did your group decide to come today?
We decided to come today, Luann, because it was a historic event not only for the nation, but for us. A new era in television, and what a better way to spend it than to watch John Glenn go back into space.
What's your impression of watching it on HD TV? It is amazing how clear it is.
Oh, it's amazing how clear it is versus the NTSC signal, something that we study in college. It's just unbelievable.
A pioneering adventure, that's what we're saying. I had to actually touch the screen to make sure I wasn't looking out the window. And I want to tell you, a lot of people have decided to come here to watch. This family here, Eli is 4.5, and Eli was excited to watch the launch with his dad. They are from Columbus, and it's interesting that his father tells me he is the same age, Eli that is, that his dad was when he watched the launch on black and white television back in 1962. So it's next generation TV. Angela and Dave.
All right, Luann, thank you very much. You know, besides having Catherine Sullivan here, she is the director of COSI, there is another NASA COSI connection that you're about to tell us about.
Yeah, I discovered this when we got down here, Angela. Pedro Duque of the European Space Agency is making his first flight today.
Right.
He'll be the first Spaniard to fly in space. The European Space Agency had a special patch made up to commemorate this, and it's shown here. And I discovered this at the News Center and noticed that it's done by the same artist that will be creating all the interior signage for the new COSI in Columbus to open next year.
Excellent.
Javier Mariscal of Barcelona, both shown here on this European Space Agency patch, and to be featured at COSI next year.
Just one more COSI NASA connection.
Absolutely.
All right, thanks a lot, Dr. Sullivan. Let's go now to OSU, where Lisa Kick is standing by. Lisa?
Yes, we are here just outside the president's office, Angela, and really a neat week here as we kick off Ohio State's Space Week, you might say. So joining me now is a man who knows all about the Space Week. We've got some folks gathered to watch the blast off and lift off of the Shuttle Discovery. And Dave Ferguson, you are one of the assistants to the provost, and you have kind of coordinated this room as a space room.
That's right. We are using this to honor John Glenn and also to highlight the research that some of our faculty do. We have about $20 million worth of space-related research here. We're very proud of it. We're all very excited about this. This is not our first Buckeye in space. We've had a number of Buckeyes, including this Buckeye that went up in 1995 and traveled 3.7 million miles before it came back. And it had 4 Ohio people on board that one.
Yeah.
So we have quite a tradition of people of Ohio.
And the one person that wasn't a Buckeye, they made an honorary Buckeye, so that everyone going up there would have some sort of flavor for Ohio. Now, all this week you have special events going on. What are some of the highlights you can tell me real quickly?
Well, we're having a series of lectures, but also everybody's invited to the Ohio Stadium this Saturday, where we're going to have a rocket launch, a statewide rocket launch. We're going to be having about 500 kids from across the state shooting rockets off there. In the stadium. So
you thought it was loud during the OSU games. It's going to be very loud with all those little rockets going off, Dave and Angela. You guys are going to miss some big noise happening here in Columbus.
Okay, Lisa, thank you very much. Lisa Kick reporting from OSU.
We want to go to Catherine Sullivan real quickly because you've been listening to NASA Control and you say there's just a tiny glitch in this countdown now.
It's actually not a glitch in the countdown, David. It's something they discovered in the orbiter itself during the processing a month or so ago. An indicator that tells them where main engine number 2 is actually pointed. Doesn't read exactly as it should. There are other ways to determine where the engine really is pointed. But the software in the ground launch sequencer expects a certain set of numbers from that engine. So when they reach the point at 3 minutes and 25 seconds where they're gimbaling the main engines, they expect that software to say, hey, this is not what I expected. And since they understand the problem, they'll confirm their indications and they'll reset that software flag so they can proceed.
So it isn't anything that's going to stop the launch or hold up the launch at all?
It should not be something that should hold up the launch.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Sullivan. And the clock is ticking.
It is. As the clock ticks, here's what we can expect to happen in the next few minutes. At T-minus 4 minutes and 55 seconds, the liquid oxygen will be drained back from the fuel tanks.
And then at T-minus 3 minutes and 55 seconds, there will be an orbiter profile test.
And at T-minus 3 minutes and 30 seconds, an engine profile test. And Dr. Sullivan, are we okay?
We're looking good. Everything's going well.
All right.
We'll be back with more right after this.
Stay with us.
You're watching Mission Discovery, special coverage from 10 TV Eyewitness News and the Ohio News Network, with 10 TV's Dave Kaler, Angela Pace, and ONN's Deborah Knapp.
And welcome back. Live pictures now, and the count there, I think, has resumed. We are resuming after the 20-minute hold. You know, if you've watched shuttle launches, you have not only seen them, but you have heard them too, and we're not just talking about the sounds of the rocket in this case.
Because for every launch there is a voice, the voice of the commentator, and today's voice of NASA is Lisa Malone. Now, she is the head of the media here at the Kennedy Space Center and has been calling shuttle launches for a number of years now. Her office is in a room in the Launch Control Center, and we spoke with her a couple of days ago. We tried to find out what she was going to say when the shuttle took off, but she put her fingers to her lips and said, shh, this is going to be a secret. So we'll all just have to watch and wait and listen.
You know, well, John Glenn has been in the public eye all year long. While training for this mission, John Glenn also kept his office in Washington. And it wasn't until Congress recessed for the fall did Glenn begin working full-time on the astronaut duties. Right now, we want to go to Chuck Strickler, who is down at the State House right now in Columbus. Chuck?
Well, Dave and Angela, good afternoon from the crypt of the State House. We are in the basement here where we have a large screen television set up. You can see the space shuttle there and the launch pad there. A lot of the workers here at the State House, tourists coming through here, will have the opportunity to see the launch, which is, of course, in less than an hour. And look what I happened to come across from one of the people that I bumped into today. Look at this. This is an edition from the Columbus Evening Dispatch, Tuesday, February 20th, 1962. You can see the yellowed pages. The actual day when John Glenn went up into space for the first time back in 1962. Glenn launched into orbit, the headline says, beautiful sight, he says. And you can expect a similar type of headline tomorrow in papers all across the country for sure. Now, a lot of people are beginning to gather for this historic launch, and have to introduce Doug Engelhardt, who actually collects newspapers. And Doug, you have something else too. When you were a Cub Scout as a little boy, you collected some kind of a scrapbook, correct?
That's right. I was one of the space program kids of the 60s, and all that started when I was very little, and I collected all that stuff. Very excited about the space program, beginning with the Mercury astronauts in a...
Hey, let's just see some of this. What did you collect here?
Well, this was a Cub Scout project I did on the space program at that time, beginning with the very first launch of Alan Shepard through Grissom, Chaffee, John Glenn. Here's newspaper clippings, stuff from Time magazine.
Right, just detailing the facts of the early years of the program.
Right, and I think I got a merit badge for this, and I've always held on to it, and thank God I did.
Yeah. Doug Engelhardt, just one of the many fans of the space program, down here at the State House, getting ready to witness history once again. We also want to mention that some students, 4th grade students from Bluffview Elementary School in Worthington, Judy Tabor's class, they will also be coming down here in time for the launch, we're told, and we hope to get some more reaction from them and other people as we throw it back now to you.